It's possible for me to enter Sudan normally, but I had to get in covertly.
CIA.
This is the moment of no return. Being truly hunted.
They look for the treasure.
If I fall into their hands, anything could happen, including my execution.
There is a bounty on your head. Don't kill me!
This is bad. This is really bad. I'm now in Darfur, Western Sudan, a state that for the last year has been sealed off from the international community. Back in 2004, I was a young, hungry journalist, filmmaker in my 20s. I came across this name, which was Darfur, the desert war in Sudan, in the middle of Africa. The images I was capturing, they just ricocheted across the news headlines.
U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell said that genocide has been
Arab militia forces backed by the Sudanese government have been attacking the indigenous population.
Rebels of the Sudan Liberation Army, or SLA, leading the resistance against government-backed militias.
Now 12 years later, I'm back. The world had forgotten Darfur, and I'm heading again to a desert war that nobody's covering. I've been hearing many allegations the Sudanese government has been using chemical weapons against its own civilians in these mountains called Jebel Mara. These mountains are deep inside Darfur, very hard to get to. My mission was to see if these allegations are true. It would be huge news. It's impossible for me to enter Sudan normally. I had to get in covertly. That's why I made my way as a tourist from Chad up to the border. Now, I know the dangers and what's at stake here, but really, if I'm not doing it, there won't be another journalist here. So my mind flicks to Giovanna, my partner, my producer, and my son, Romeo. I carry a small photograph of my son. As I near the border, I put it into my shoe, because I know that's one thing that I will always keep. I'm thinking really about what's to come. One of the biggest threats when I get into Darfur is going to be the government militias. They've known to kill at random, massacre civilians. And if you fall into their hands, really anything is possible. So I pull into Abeshe after 15 hours on this bus. Abeshe is this large, fairly wide town 100 kilometers from the border. Finally, I'm a huge step closer to Darfur. I know I'm the only white guy there. I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. The Sudanese spy network on this border will start taking interest in me, so I'm trying to keep a low profile. The first thing I do is check in with Giovanna in London. Daoud. And it's Daoud Harry, it's my Darfuri brother, the man I've come to meet. We embrace each other and I get a waft of his fantastic cheap cologne.
Is this your idea of Loki?
Looking like a sultan, basically. But it's great to see him.
Where did this come from?
Do you like my role?
No, not at all.
Daoud I first met back in 2004, for the first time when I was in Darfur. He was my fixer, my translator, my guide. Daoud is a character, but he's a man who's also driven to help his people.
Yeah, really?
And a very, very brave man. Then Daoud and I were down to business. I've got this rucksack and it had this compartment perfect for hiding the drives, which was where I was going to store all the material that I was planning on filming.
What's that?
That's a tracking device. It pings a signal back to London so Giovanna knows where we are. If we get into trouble, I press this emergency button and it sounds the alarm.
We start going through the plan.
So, we make the crossing from Chad to Darfur here. Then we meet our friends, the SLA rebels, here.
We're going to meet with the SLA rebels. That's the Sudanese Liberation Army. They've been fighting the government of Sudan for well over a decade now.
They will take us to here, the rebel stronghold in the Jebel Mara Mountains.
And there are going to be allegations of chemical weapons that happened.
But it's very dangerous. All of this area is crawling with the government militia.
But we know that as long as we stay invisible, as long as we don't wake the dragon being the Sudanese government militia, we have a very, very good chance of success. So the next morning, Daoud's got a local driver. We're now driving north, and we're arriving to the town of Tina. This is an infamous border town with contraband, illegal trade, rebels. For a white man to enter this town will immediately provoke the Sudanese police to be on alert.
Down, please.
Daoud now changes his character. He just tells them, forward, look forward, drive, drive, drive.
Okay, now we're gonna go. Now, yeah, we're gonna go. Yeah.
So we've arrived in a safe house of someone sympathetic to the rebels. Daoud is now making phone calls. He's making contacts with the man who's going to take us across. It's now coming up to midnight. This is a courier, fast car courier. It's like a supercharged 4x4. This man takes anything across the border. Contraband, weapons, goods. But tonight he's taking Daoud and me. This is the moment of no return. We're about to cross the border. We're just silent. No words are needed. It's like a maze. Left, right, but he's moving fast. And then we're out into the desert. We're now just going by moonlight. At 10-15 minutes as we race across the border, none of us say anything. And I turn on the phone, and up it flashes. Sudan. We're in. We drive fast, and we're heading straight east, deep into Darfur. Suddenly, the courier pulls off. He puts his fingers to his lips. I can see a speck of light behind us. What is it? It slowly morphs into two small specks, and they're headlights. Clearly following our tracks. It could be Sudanese government militias. And if we're caught here, there's little chance of escape. If I fall into their hands, anything could happen. Including my execution. There's just this minute of tension. Do they know we're here? We just wait.
Oh, our friends.
It's the SLA rebels. It's like,
Our friends.
we made the rendezvous.
Get box.
This is it. I'm with the SLA, the Sudanese Liberation Army rebels.
Salam alaikum.
We've all got the rebel headscarves and gear, and yeah, they're all grinning. But it's fairly efficient. We need to make this handover. No one really wants to hang around. I got my camera and started filming. That's why I'm here. This is the job.
These men desperately want the world to see the atrocities in Jebel Mara. They know to put their forgotten war back on the map.
مرحبا بيك في بلادنا، راك ضيف مهم برشا.
What did he say?
He said you're a VIP. You're a VIP, Philip.
The next morning, we woke up and Dawood shaking my shoulder.
Flip. What? What is it?
I don't know. There's a car coming. The guards jump up and there's a vehicle approaching. This man in this old army greatcoat gets out. And suddenly, the guns go down.
Salam.
I'm like, it's the Fox. This is General Shetter, the man who's known as the Fox. He's a famous rebel commander. I'd met him many years before. He was known as the Fox because he'd always avoided kill or capture by the Sudanese government. I couldn't be in better hands. So we set off with the Fox and convoy of cars.
It's day one and we're travelling with rebels from the SLA. This conflict in Darfur has led to the displacement of over 2 million people. The United Nations have described it as the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Each time we stop, I'll just send a text to Giovanna. We're inching closer and closer towards the mountains. But then one morning, we start to see a lot of helicopter activity. Fairly close to where we were the night before. It was worrying. The next day, the Fox has been on multiple sat phones all morning.
Something has clearly happened, but I don't know what.
I start to hear tension in the voices of the men. Something's happened. Dawood looked shaken. It's probably the most shaken I'd seen him.
You know, you've seen the helicopters because they've been tracking your sat phone.
My sat phone had been picked up by the Sudanese intelligence. They've been monitoring me every time I turn my phone on.
No.
Dawood was like, no. That's not the worst of it.
There is a bounty.
There's a bounty. $500,000. Kill or capture.
On your head.
And this is just devastating news. And apparently the news is all over in the villages that the Westerner is here, is in this area. This cold realization started to sink in that suddenly we were being truly hunted. I immediately took the sat phone, stripped it down, took out the SIM card, tossed it. And suddenly that was it. I realised that, that was my communication down. The men armed up. They were immediately ready for a confrontation. Thousands of men and cars were sweeping across Darfur looking for me and Dawood. Here I was with a group of men who would essentially give their lives to get me to the Jebel Mara mountains. But that night, we're all pretty shaken, to be honest, and there's a perimeter set around the camp. Nobody's smoking anymore, there's no fire. There's no going back, the Chadian border is sealed. I'll be arrested in Chad. I can only go deeper and deeper, with the net closing ever tighter, and this bounty on my head.
Still control the mountains. If only we can reach them, we should be safe.
But in the morning, the Fox is not looking happy, and so I asked Dawood, what's going on?
It's a problem with the rebels up in the mountains. There's bad blood.
There's a difference between the rebels in the desert plains and the rebels in the mountains.
Now the mountain SLA are refusing to rendezvous with Fox's men.
And I need these two groups to work together. And we're so close to the mountains now, literally under 100 kilometers.
Tell him we need to find another safe way up into the mountains.
اسمع لازم لك تلقانا أمن طريق باش نخرجوا على هذوما الجبل.
And Fox sort of smiles and he says, actually in English, he says, smuggler. He goes on to explain that he has this contact, a smuggler from an Arab tribe who regularly moves in and out of the mountains.
How do we know we can trust this man?
I asked the Fox, how can we trust this smuggler? And he says, you can't.
What do you think?
It's a risk, but
got no other choice.
So we set off with Fox to meet the smuggler. They tell me to stay in the car and I watch the deal being done. Eventually, they call me over. There's quite a thick-set, burly man there. This must be the smuggler. He has a strong grip, but he doesn't look me in the eye. I just have a bad feeling. But as much as none of us seem to trust this guy, this is what we have to deal with. Fox and his boys disappear off into the night. We've now changed hands. Now it feels maybe, just maybe, I'm within touching distance of the mountains. But I also know that anything can happen. So I've placed the tracker on the dashboard. We're in these bumpy mountain passes. We turn this corner and suddenly, bang! This bright flare of headlights flashes straight into our eyes. This is it, ambush. I pressed the tracker button on the dashboard, stuck it in my pants. I hear Dawul being beaten. And suddenly, I'm just staring down the barrel of an AK-47. Don't shoot! Blindfold on me, it was shooting along at high speed. I keep pressing that red button of the tracker. And I just don't want to lose this tracker because without it, Giovanna, she's not going to know where I am.
On the 22nd of December, my phone went off and I saw a message saying red alert. Phil had pressed that red button on his tracker. Okay, so I had to take a deep breath and I was trembling. I tried to call Phil on his satellite phone and I couldn't get through. This dot on the map was moving back north. That dot became the only link with them.
Finally, after about an hour of driving, we stop and they pull me out and they're shouting.
GPS! وين الGPS? كلموا! وين الGPS?
They look for the tracker.
أعطوني GPS!
It just clicks. It's like, I know about this tracker. The only person who could have told me the smuggler. I think, he sold us out. Just tearing the truck apart, trying to find this tracker.
I've got the tracker.
Get it off it. Dawul says, get rid of it now, get rid of it. Get it off it now. I throw it. The commander immediately runs over. He lifts his gun and just pumps 2 bullets into the tracker. That's it, that's my last lifeline. My last link to London and Giovanna. So the next morning, I wake up and Dawul and I are now in scrubland. And we've been left with these 2 guys with AK-47s. desert sun starts beating down, and I can feel it burning my skin already, and it's pretty brutal. What I want more than anything is I want a phone. I want to tell Giovanna the day of being a hostage. I call one of the guards over, and I reach into my shoe and I pull out the photo that I've kept hidden for weeks of my small son, Romeo.
This is my son. I want to call him to tell him his daddy's okay.
I hold it up and I say, I got to phone, tell him I'm alive. And the guard just dismisses me. So I start to have this idea. Later on, when they try and bring me food and water, I refuse it and I keep holding up the photo and I say, phone. And this happens on and off throughout the whole day, and then into the next day also. And I can see they're getting frustrated. They're getting, nervous about this. And I'm thinking, just stick with it. Don't eat, don't drink. I haven't eaten or drunk anything for 24 hours. And I realise that now I have this power. They don't want me to get sick. I'm worth $500,000. I push away breakfast, push away dinner, and breakfast again the next morning. I'm starting to be exhausted, just the dust and the heat and not eating and being held hostage. And eventually, at the end of day 3, they come over and everything comes to a head, and I just hold it up and burst into tears. He came back and he had a phone. And I was like, my God. Bloody hell, I can't remember the number. And then suddenly my mind goes blank. And I can't remember the number of my house in London. What's the number?
It was Christmas Day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my home phone rings. Hello? And then this voice goes,
Giovanna, it's me.
And I was like, oh my God, Fia, you okay? Are you okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yeah.
I hear you. And I just say,
I haven't got long. We've been taken.
The militia group. How you feel? Please, can you give me the name of the place?
We're about a couple of K from where I pressed the emergency button.
And they're going to sell us to the government. Happy Christmas.
Christmas. And then the phone went dead. I was like trembling, at the same time happy. I didn't know, lots of emotions inside me.
Yeah, I look at Dawood and he's got like tears in his eyes, and it's just a moment where we realise, after that phone call, I somehow felt we had a chance. There was hope again. Finally, one night, after about now 6-7 days, we see these lights coming towards us, and it's the commander's car. And we realise this is it. Something's about to happen.
They said that you're going to be sold to the government of Sudan.
But Dawood's going to be given his freedom, and this is because they're worried about making Dawood's tribe angry.
Look, we need to swap the bags.
He's going to take that rucksack with the drive and all the footage, and I'll take his. I didn't get a moment to say goodbye to Dawood. We're just suddenly separated, and I'm put in the front with the pickup. And I realise, that's it, now I'm completely alone. We just start driving, going fast through the night. So we come around this dirt track and suddenly the headlights illuminates this row of men in Sudanese government military uniforms. They beckon me out, and the soldiers sort of come around me, and obviously I'm the object of curiosity. And I just look down in horror. The bag at my feet is my bag, the bag that they're all supposed to have. This bag contains the drives of all my footage for the last weeks. For the Sudanese intelligence and army to get hold of these drives, they'll be able to blow some cover stories it will put live. So I step forward and I take the bag in his hands as well and I help him shake it.
Just camera equipment, all camera equipment.
Really, with my thumb, I'm holding these drives. My heart is just like bum, 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 pounding, pounding. Just like a relief sweeps through my body, and maybe these can stay hidden. So then I'm taken out of the tent and I'm put in this car, but the journey is a sort of blur. The dawn starts to come up as we approach this city. Then suddenly I'm pushed downwards, and I start to get worried. Why are they not letting me be seen? My mind is sort of racing and maybe they're going to execute me. And they put a blindfold on me. I'm being walked across tarmac and I hear this big whirring sound. And it's like an aeroplane. This whirring sound is louder and louder, but somehow I feel like I'm outside. And I realise we're like the cargo ramp at the back of this plane. And the whirring just gets stronger, and the plane starts to move. I can feel the speed increasing. And then the man, he says in really bad English, "We will throw you from the plane. Please, don't kill me!" I'm terrified. I start to beg them. I'm like, please, don't throw me from the plane. Don't kill me. Can't think anything, I'm a bit numb. My body's just cold, just adrenaline and sweat. And I look across the seats opposite. I'm just like, my God, it's Daoud. And I realise they've taken him as well. The plane starts to descend. I looked out of the window in this huge, sprawling city, and I realise, that has to be Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, the heart of the regime. We land. I'm then just not sure where I am, but I'm led inside what I think is like a warehouse. I'm forced down onto my knees. Suddenly there's just like silence. I realise this must be some black site, some torture interrogation centre. Daoud looks at me and he just shakes his head like this, like, this is bad. This is really bad. as he's taking these blows, he doesn't shout. This seems to infuriate the people hitting him, and they hit him hard. And there's two doors, and they take me into one door, and they take Daoud into the other door. There's a chair bolted to the floor. Oh, this is a room you do not want ever to be brought into. Two men sit down on the desk. One's writing, and the other man, he looks obviously like he's in charge. He has the air of an academic, very calm.
Who are you? And what were you doing in Darfur?
I'm a British journalist. I came to Darfur to make a film.
This is not true, and we know it. You are a spy. MI6. CIA.
I'm not a spy. I'm a British journalist.
I'm sorry, Philip. I don't believe you. Suddenly there's this bolt in my back, and then I'm thrown out of the chair against the wall. It's just this burning, like a fire stick's been put onto your back. I've been electrocuted.
I ask again.
And he's like, right, who did you meet? What happened? I'm telling him, as best I can, the details of how we crossed in Chad, who met us.
Who is the fox?
So this interrogation continues. It's just like a blur, it's questions.
What is your relationship with Daoud Khan?
Being hurt.
Give me the names of the rebels. Who are you?
By this time, it's been about 8 hours of interrogation, and I'm just completely broken. Probably the lowest point I've ever been in my life. Then I'm suddenly blindfolded again, frog marched by a man again through this warehouse, and I can sort of sense now it's night time, it's night. There's a smell like excrement and rubbish, and I'm forced to kneel down. And I feel there's like a metallic object, and I presume it's a weapon. And I can feel the man with me take 2 steps back. And then I start to panic. It's all clicking in my brain, like they've done the interrogation. I've been kept hidden. Now they're just going to get rid of me. They're going to dump my body somewhere. This is an execution. And then suddenly he takes my shoulder and walks me off again. I'm clearly now in some sort of institution. And he just pushes me in, and I just fall to the ground. There's this muscular young black guy, and he stands up, and he says, "Gom, gom," which means stand in Arabic. I'm thinking, is this man going to attack me? He turns around, and he gets something from the wall. It's a toothbrush. I clean my teeth, like slowly brushing, and I'm like, it just feels like a bit of a human being again. It feels good.
Come, later. Come.
I feel suddenly very emotional. This man is obviously a fellow prisoner, has just shared everything he had with me. I close my eyes and drift into perhaps the first sleep for many days. I woke up the following morning, and the man who was squatting by the wall opposite pointed at me, and I said, "Philip." And one day passed, another day passed, it turned into a week, and then another week. I was never let out of the cell. Time to time, suddenly the door would be pulled open and my name would be called. And I'd be taken back to that black site. They would just ask me endless questions, endless questions. Nobody was telling me that I had been charged. Nobody was telling me how long I would be there. And Kareem told me, he'd been there for 8 months with no charge, and still no idea when he'd be released. You're never let out of the cell. There's no TV, no radio, no books, no pens, no paper. There's just nothing, it's bare. My thoughts would often turn to Daoud. Were they continuing to torture him? I couldn't help but feel guilty that we'd ended up like this. Now it's just emptiness, and it's like a battle with your mind. Real black, angry despair. You don't know if you're here for 2 days or a year. And for me, that was just a terrifying thought. I'd be pulled back to thinking about London and Giovanna and what she would be saying to Romeo. I knew by now he would be asking, "Where's Daddy?" And I wondered what was Giovanna doing, how she must be feeling, what she was going through. And did she even know where I was?
Eventually we got to know Phil was in the notorious prison. Onward, basically, I was a machine.
I can fax it.
I was on my most aggressive behavior with anyone concerned. The Sudanese government, with the authorities here in the UK, tried to kind of like say, okay, either you release him or you charge him.
No, my husband needs my help.
Nothing else mattered.
One day the guard comes to the bars and he gives me this letter.
It was an ordinary day in January, and I wrote this letter, and I tried to be very positive. I wanted to let him know that we were fine, but we didn't want him to feel guilty. It was not his fault. Everybody was loving him and didn't blame him for anything. Not to worry about his work not working out as he wanted. Not to worry about us because we were behind him and working non-stop to make sure that he was coming home very soon.
I have to close it quickly because this is just... I don't want to cry, basically. So the man thinks I finished and he says, give it to me, give it to me. And it's like they're taking a part of me away.
I knew inside myself that Phil is someone who is very resilient and he doesn't give up easily.
There came a moment when I realised that something had to change. And I had to start taking care of myself. And I just started running on the spot. and I closed my eyes and I was running around a park in London. I knew that Kareem understood that every man's got to find his own way to survive that space. And then one day, just this guard comes up to my door and it's the first time they've ever asked me to take my bag with me.
Home. Home.
He's happy, but I know what it's like to see another man released and you're kept in.
Shukran, Karim.
We give each other a hug and I say shukran katir. Thank you, thank you. And then I just leave. And I go out into the courtyard. So this guard appears and in his hand is the rucksack. It's the rucksack with the drives in. I feel my thumbs at the back and I realise the drives are still there. He thinks I'm smiling saying thank you, but I'm smiling just thinking, I've done it, this is not in vain. On those drives, everything we've done, this is the whole story, our story, Dawood and I. And it's there, it's in my hands.
I think the experience of feeling Dawood, although of all the pain that I went through, the pain that we went through as families, I think still is worth it.
We went there to try and show what was happening to the Darfuri people, and even though in one sense we failed in our mission to discover chemical weapons and what was happening in those mountains, we had another story. From those drives and everything I'd shot on them, we managed to show the lengths what the Sudanese government was prepared to do to stop anyone reporting in Darfur. Our story was what then we managed to get out to the world.